Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast Why You Do What You Do, the podcast that talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. Hope you all had a good holiday weekend. My husband and I took a little weekend getaway to Cincinnati. Went to a place called Jungle Gyms International Market. If you have not been, I recommend that you go. They sell oddball things. Really just good food from around the world. But they also sell really strange things that people might eat. He bought this. I seriously doubt he ever eats it. I'm not going to touch it with a 25-foot pole. So those of you who couldn't see that or just listening to me, it is a baked tarantula. Yeah, we're not going to eat that. I think he just wants to see what it looks like. But yeah, if you go to Jungle Gyms International Market in Cincinnati, you can find all kinds of crazy things. And then for dinner, we ate at a place called Rincon Mexican Restaurant. I recommend them too. The food was perfectly seasoned. Sometimes you go to a restaurant and the food has no taste, and you're disappointed. And then sometimes you go to a restaurant and the food has too much taste, too spicy, and you're disappointed. But this place was just right. I mean, it had a flavor. You can ask my family. I'm a big flavor person. A lot of the food in our area kind of leaves me wanting something else because there's in southern cooking there's not a lot of flavor unless you throw a lot of pepper in there, which my husband does and needs pepper, and he grew up like that because his mom makes the flavorless food and they just put a lot of pepper in it and think that's good. But I like spices from, all over the world, and I like flavor in my food. So I can, recommend the Rincon Mexican Restaurant, because their food has taste. On the last podcast, we were talking about preventing and treating delinquency. And we're going to take back up on that. The Chicago Child Parent Centers, a preschool program for disadvantaged children in the Chicago public schools, that is followed by special services through age 9, shows that early intervention can work on a large scale. So the Chicago Public Schools has this program. You can look into that if you're wanting to do that, for your school, or, like I satellite schooled my kids. They had their schoolwork and their homework, and then I would give them a little more, if they didn't have enough homework to fill up homework time. I would give them a little more. I satellite schooled them. My buffet that you see here back behind me used to be filled with workbooks. Now it's filled with dishes. Now the kids are all grown and gone, and I don't need the workbooks anymore. So I could actually put dishes in my buffet. Imagine that. Yeah, no. At age 20, participants had better educational and social outcomes. They divided the word better. That's weird. And fewer juvenile arrests than a comparison group who had received less extensive early interventions. So the program did work. These kids who got early intervention came out better than the kids who did not. So, don't let anybody tell you that kids will get over stuff, kids will outgrow stuff. Some things they won't. And like I say, if you see a problem, nip in the bud. Don't let it get to the point where it's a big old problem by the time they're grown. Stop it now, because 9 times out of 10, problems don't get outgrown. They get worse. So, don't wait for the kid to outgrow problem behavior, because chances are they won't. You need to intervene. A preventive program for 1st through 6th graders in multi-ethnic high crime areas of Seattle reduced adolescent criminal behavior as well as heavy drinking and risky sexual activity. So in Seattle, they were working with these teenagers to try and, curb the juvenile delinquent behavior and, keep them from getting, STDs and, unwanted pregnancies and things like that. And it does work. Like I said, in your child, you get out of them what you put into them. So if all you're putting it into them is neglect or reject or abuse, that's all you're going to get out of them. You know, you have to put in good stuff to get good stuff out. Rather than targeting those issues directly, the program was designed to make youngsters more competent academically and socially and more committed to school. So, if a person feels more capable academically, they're going to feel smarter, more able to complete school. If they feel more competent socially, then they're going to feel like they do have a place in the world and they belong, and they're able to navigate life. At age 18, youths who had been in the program were less likely than a control group to have committed violent acts. So, intervention does work. It's a fact, and there's nothing wrong with a little intervention every now and then. Now, some parents, I have heard things when I used to work at a psychology group in a counseling center. Some parents take the completely hands-off approach. They have to make their own mistakes. They have to learn for themselves. And what happens is the child doesn't, and they fumble around in life. And then they start having these problems, and the parents are like, so shocked. Why does my child have these problems? I wonder. It's like a psychiatrist I used to work with said, there's no such thing as bad kids, only bad parents. Because a kid is a blank slate, and you get out of it what you put into it. So, Okay, we're going to talk about the youth violence epidemic. Now, it's not as bad as it was in the 90s, but it's still there. There's still a lot of youth violence towards each other. On April 20th, 1999, 18-year-old Eric Harris and 17-year-old Dylan Keibold entered Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, wearing black trench coats and carrying a rifle, a semi-automatic pistol, 2 sawed-off shotguns, and more than 30 homemade bombs. And I think we all remember Columbine because it was the first really major mass shooting at a school. And as a mom, and I had 2 small kids at the time, and it just blew my mind because it's like, wow, I never thought about this happening at my child's school. I knew there were kids. We had some disturbed kids who dropped out, and had problems in school and high school, but I never thought, like, literally somebody would come back to a school and start killing people. I mean, it just blew my mind. Laughing and taunting, they began spraying bullets at fellow students, killing 12 classmates and 1 teacher before fatally shooting themselves. So, I mean, clearly they had decided to kill themselves. But not only that, to take other people with them. And that's horrible. I've gotten upset with, people before who say crazy things like that, and I'm like, hey, if you want to check out, you do that, but don't take others with you. Give them a chance to live their life, because they might want their life, and I've been told that wasn't very nice. But I don't like that. If you make the decision to check out, only take yourself. Don't take other people who might not choose that. The massacre in Littleton was one of a string of school shootings. A 10-year epidemic of youth violence peaked in 1993 and has since declined. That's because we have security in the schools now. Some schools even have metal detectors. And, parents got all up in arms when that was the big thing. I'm like, I don't care. I'm fine with that because my kids are in that school, and I just soon know if somebody had a gun. We had an incident with one of my oldest children where a kid brought a gun to school, and they found it. And I'm glad, because I certainly don't want my child to get shot because somebody else has a problem, But the number of arrests of young people for aggravated assault has not. So kids are still assaulting other kids. And as long as these kids feel this bad about their life, they're going to act out on it. nor have young people's confidential reports of their own violent behavior. So, other kids admitting, yeah, and I had fights in my day, and it usually was over stupid stuff. Usually it was a girl who said I was trying to steal her boyfriend, and that's not the case. I had enough trouble with my own boyfriends, trust me. But then they wanted to fight, and then I would get angry, and then I would be like, all right, let's fight. And usually that was not a good outcome for them. And sometimes people picked on my friends. I had some friends who were not popular or very big, tall or whatever. And people would pick on them, and I would say, hey, don't pick on my friends. What are you gonna do? Well, if you pick on them, you're gonna have to answer to me too. I had some problems in middle school, especially. Had some anger, So, thankfully I've worked through that. But I was a pretty angry person in middle school. The occasional youth killing may make the headlines, but other crimes such as forcible rape, robbery, and assault are much more prevalent. And we hear about date rape, and this happens. And unfortunately, there was, especially when I was growing up, there was a lot of attitude from the older adults. It was like, you must ask for it in some way. And trust me, nobody asked to be raped, No, as a survivor, no one asked to be raped, trust me. And of course, robbery, that goes on all the time, and assault, fights going all the time. We all, know about this kid and that kid fighting, and, it's a shame, because this shows that they have no respect for themselves or anyone else. Why do some young people engage in such destructive behavior? One answer lies in the immaturity of the adolescent brain. So, sorry, I'm sure the adolescents, if any adolescents are, I can't imagine them watching me. They're watching these gaming guys. But, the adolescent brain is not quite there yet. They don't want to hear that, I know. But they're not. It takes, up into your 20s for your brain to become its full maturity, up until 30 for it to become its full, capacity for learning before you start forgetting stuff. So that's the funny thing about, strength and intellect, is like you spend all this time building it up into your 30s, and then you start going down the hill and you start falling apart and forgetting things. All that work for nothing. Particularly the prefrontal cortex, which is critical to judgment and impulse suppression. So, older adolescents don't have wise decision-making skills. What's best for them and theirs, it's not there yet. Impulse control is not there yet. They want to do something, they want to do it. See it, they want it, hear it. Impulse control is still not there in your older adolescents. Sorry, any of you, like I said, I doubt if any adolescents are listening to me, but sorry. You might want to listen to the parents or grandparents or aunties or whoever's there giving you support, and temper your impulses with some of their wisdom. Sorry, I know you didn't want to hear that. Another answer is ready access to guns in a culture that romanticizes gunplay. And unfortunately, there are a lot of parents who do have guns in the house, and do not lock them up, or the kid knows where the key is, to get into that. So it doesn't do a lot of good to really lock it up if the kid knows where the key is. And that's how these things happen, is the kid has access to a gun, gets a hold of a gun, and then messes up, a lot of lives, not just their own. Violence often accompanies drug use, gang membership, early sexual activity, and other risky behaviors. Because in a gang, we had a big gang here in our downtown area, and one of the things they were doing is drive-bys. That was a gang initiation. You had to shoot somebody as you drove by. So, gangs are not friendly places to be. Drug use, of course. Drug use alters your brain chemistry and your thinking processes, and your body. It messes up your body chemistry as well. So you're not going to be making super wise decisions if you're on drugs. And of course, you know, sexual activity. My mother told me a story about a girl that said, all guys want is sex anyway. You might as well give it to them, because I guess she was afraid they were going to take it. So, there's unfortunately a mindset like that. And, the more risky behaviors a teenager engages in, the more likely they're going to have, excuse me here, allergies, problems socially. So, keep your eyes on these youngsters. Psychologists point to potential warning signs that might avert future tragedies. Adolescents who are likely to commit violence often refuse to listen to authority figures, such as parents and teachers. They ignore the feelings and rights of others, mistreat people, rely on violence or threaten violence to solve problems, and believe that life has treated them unfairly. So these are things that psychologists, have noted, and they've studied the mind. So this is, something they would notice. And of course, that's the whole rebel without a cause thing. Don't listen to the authority figures. But in general, most of us do listen to authority figures. We might not take everything they say, to heart, but we at least respect and listen to them. So they ignore the feelings and rights of others. Have you ever seen the bully? They don't care how other people feel. They're willing to make fun of other people and be mean to them for no reason. They don't respect that other people have rights and feelings and individuality. Now, unfortunately, that's kind of come back into style from the 50s when it went out and should have stayed out. And they mistreat people. We all hear the Karen and Kevin things that, was in vogue a few years ago that people were talking about. These people that, think they're the cock of the walk, the queen of the world, or whatever. And, they're going to do to everybody else, And it's like, why? Because no one's going to like you, and you're not going to have any social life if you're like that. And violence and threat to solve problems. There are people like that. I know there's a person who had a problem with that because the way they were taught by their family was that that's how you solve a problem. You violence the other person. And of course, that's not going to work because that only escalates things. And then you have a serious problem at some point. And especially if it's in a romantic relationship, you're probably going to lose your partner because your partner's only going to go so far in this before they're like, to heck with you. I'm going. If you start getting too physically violent, they might just call the cops on you. And you might end up in jail. So that's not an answer. And they believe that life has treated them unfairly. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Everybody, listen up. Life treats everybody unfairly. Jesus told you it wasn't going to be fair. And that's a fact of life. None of us get 100% free ride and have the best, most joyful, good time in life. I would be amazed. And a lot of people who end up being happier in later life had a lot of rough times before they got to that point in your younger life. So life's going to treat you unfair. But the best thing you can do when life does treat you unfair is, like I told my kids, roll with the punches and then get back up. Life's going to knock you down sometimes. You just got to roll and get back up. Because if you don't, then you stay down, then you don't have a life. You don't get anything you want. You don't get anywhere you want to be. If you let life knock you down and you stay down. And unfortunately, there's, depression, anxiety. People do get knocked down and they stay down. I know some people, and, I pray for them because I feel like they couldn't handle the fact that life didn't treat them so great, and they can't bounce back from it. They're obsessed with this incident, in time, or these incidents, and they can't bounce back. Trust me, I've been through a lot of crap. I've been through a lot of crap. Life's gonna treat you unfair. Life has treated me and everybody else, all of you, sorry, unfair. And but this is the world. This is the world, and the world is unfair. Sorry, it's gonna happen. But if you, take your licking, get back up, keep moving, then you're gonna have a better life than if you let life knock you down and say, it's unfair to me. Well, of course it is. It's unfair to everybody. Hello? Wake up. They often look older than their peers, and that's true. If you think about the delinquency news, where they do look older than their peers. And this can lead to other kids, picking on them, making fun of them. And it can also lead, girls to not be as interested in them because they don't have the youthful, cute look that girls, tend to go for in high school. They tend to do poorly in school, cut classes, or play truant, be held back or suspended, or drop out, use alcohol, inhalants, and/or drugs, join gangs, and fight, steal, or destroy property. So I knew a couple guys like this that I went to high school with. One of them ended up dead. I am not sure what happened to the other one. Lost track of him, don't know. But there was a guy, he was a drug dealer in our high school, and he ended up dead. He overdosed. So, he was using his own drugs, which they say not to do. I'm not into the drug culture, but I have heard that you don't use your own stash or whatever. I'm old, I don't know all these new things. But, if they're not happy, they're more likely to do drugs and drink. So, and a gang, there's some of these kids, they don't have a family. Even though they have a family, the family's not there for them. They don't support them. They could have neglecting and rejecting parents. And so to them, the gang looks like a good place to go. These guys are like a family. They're hanging out together and looking out for each other. So that could be an appealing thing to them because they think, hey, I'll get in this gang and I'll be a part of a family. Well, is that the part of family you want to be? No, because you do something they don't like, you could be next on the hit list. So that's a problem. And then, of course, they fight and steal and destroy property because it's all acting out, and it's a way for them to try and get some attention from somebody. Hey, somebody, I'm not happy, pay some attention. That's what that's all about. Harris and Klebold showed some of these characteristics. In 3 out of 4 assaults or murders by young people, the perpetrators are members of gangs. So, again, gangs are not a good place to be. They're just not, because they perpetuate violence, they romanticize gunplay. If you listen to any, rap music, that's why I don't like rap music and some country music, because they have bad messages for people, especially young people. It's not cool to go around popping caps at people's booty. I don't know how it came to that, honestly. I don't know how it came to that, because like I said, I came up in the 70s. We was all worried about loving each other and inclusion and diversity and things, and we were all, we don't care what color you were, what side of town we didn't care. As long as you were nice to us, we gonna be nice to you. So the world has changed since I came up. For many adolescents, gangs satisfy unfulfilled needs for identity, connection, and a sense of power and control. Like I said, this is a place for them to feel like they belong somewhere, and like they have some sort of power and control over their life. We were talking on another podcast a while back about why young females tend to get involved in witchcraft. And that's because they want to feel some sort of power over their life. They're feeling powerless because of the situation they're in. And the other side, is gonna say, hey, if you were a witch, you would, have some power in your life. But of course that's not true. That's a false belief. And the only power over your life is God. So, but that is why a lot of young girls get into that, because they think it's going to give them some sort of power over their life. And for young men, especially, some young women too, but for mostly young men, they think the gang is going to give them some sort of power in their life, and that's a shame. For youngsters who lack positive family relationships, a gang can become a substitute family. So, people will make their own family. If they didn't have a great family, they'll gather friends around themselves. Unfortunately, a gang around themselves. Might have a work family. Let me see. I got to deal with that right now. Oh dear. Hopefully that doesn't, kick off, but sometimes it does. Okay. All right. Hopefully we're good. But kids will look for attention, love, whatever, wherever they can get it. And if a gang is the only place they can get it, that's where they'll go. Gangs promote a sense of us versus them. Violence against outsiders strengthens bonds of loyalty and support within the group. And that's been going on since the 50s when, gangs started, doing their thing. Teenage violence and antisocial behavior have roots in childhood. 8-year-olds who are unusually aggressive in school are likely to be antisocial in adolescence and adulthood. So, you can usually tell which kids are going to be a problem by the time they're in like the 3rd grade. And this is because the home life is just not what it should be. Children raised in a rejecting or coercive atmosphere, or in an overly permissive or chaotic one, tend to show aggressive behavior. So, if the home is not authoritative, if there's authoritarianism where they're being coerced and everything, under threat, or if the parents are just too permissive and let them do whatever they want to, these kids are more likely to act out. And the hostility they evoke in others increases their own aggression. So other kids are, not going to like the bullies. They're going to stand up to the bullies, some of them. And so this is going to increase the aggression that this person is going to have, because now they're angry that people are fighting them back. So it's a vicious cycle. Excuse me. Their negative self-image prevents them from succeeding at school or developing other constructive interests, and they generally associate with peers who reinforce their antisocial attitudes and behavior. And we all know that the bad kids, bad kids hang out with the bad kids. That's because they're getting that sense of belonging from this group. And that's a shame that this is, who you're belonging with or who you want to belong with. So, you got to take an interest in these kids. And don't just think you're done with them when they become, 13 or 15 or 16. You need to still be involved and give them your input. They might not listen, it might go in one ear and out the other, but you still need to give it to them. Young people who are impulsive or fearless, or who have low IQs or learning difficulties, also may be violence prone. And I know that's true. One of my sons has severe ADD, and he had impulse control problems, and he was committing violent acts against other students and against a dog. So we stopped that, put him in some psychiatric help, and he got on medication and he got some counseling. So, we did the good thing and nipped that in the bud, because I didn't not want a child who was like that. So, I'm like, I'm not gonna have my child be the bully of the school. No, no, no. We're gonna stop this now. And that's what you should do, because stuff follows them. And when you give them intervention, what you're showing them is that you care, that you don't want them to have a hard life. You're trying to make things better for them. And even if they don't like it at first, they're going to look back and say, well, they did the right thing. They did good. You did good. So that, is your job as a parent. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Boys in poor, unstable neighborhoods are most likely to become involved in violence. One reason that the incident at Columbine, a middle-class suburban school, was so shocking, because most of the time this happens in poor, economically stressed, depressed neighborhoods. This was in, a suburban neighborhood where nobody expected this kind of thing to happen. But, evidently the environment was not as good as it should have been. And their lives certainly weren't, as good as they should have been. And a lot of times when stuff like this happens, you hear people say, well, I kind of saw maybe this could happen because they were like this, they acted like this, they said this. And people will just sweep that under the rug. They just let that go. They don't want to take it seriously because they don't want to believe, that this child would do this. But unfortunately, in today's age, we need to listen to these children when they say stuff like this. And we need to intercede. I've had a son who says stuff like that. Now, I'm pretty sure he's just joking. But every time he says something like that, I say, no, you ain't going to do that. You ain't going to be like that. Because, I'm not having that. And that's not a thing in this family. I let them know that I care about them and I don't want them to do something bad. And even though they're in their early 20s, so the one who's hearing this might know, but I want them to know, I don't want you to make your life like this. I don't want you to do these things that are only going to cause you grief in your life. Not to mention other people are going to come against you for doing things that are not so good. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. Hopefully this helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.